Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
And Woj, you reported that Joe Mazzulla will be the interim head coach here. And we'd be remiss not to also mention that Mazzulla was arrested twice at West Virginia, once in 2008 for underage drinking and aggravated assault. 2009, he paid a $100 fine and court costs, plus had to do 40 hours of community service. Now, that was 13 years ago. He settled and paid both fines. So, shifting gears. Former Michigan State star Adrian Payne was shot and killed in Orlando, Florida, early Monday morning, the Orange County Sheriff's Office said. And in 2018, he was waived by the Magic after he was named in a report by ESPN's Outside the Lines that he'd been involved in an alleged sexual assault at Michigan State in 2010. No charges were filed in that case.
So I want to go ahead and chime in on a subject that I've been talking about for quite some time now. You know, it's something that I've touched on before, but I did want to spend a little bit of time on it because I thought it was a good teaching moment. So just hang with me for a little bit and I'm going to kind of dive in because this subject is not as simple as a lot of people are making it out to be. So most recently, Malika Andrews, she's a ESPN anchor and she's making headlines for a lot of her anti-black male antics. And this is something we've seen before with a lot of these female anchors, especially on ESPN and other networks. So Malika is just kind of the latest to kind of jump on that ship. So Malika Andrews is from a mixed race marriage. Her father is a so-called black man and her mother is from the Uish community. And I purposely mispronounced that because there's just certain words, for whatever reason, that I cannot get away with saying on this platform. I think certain channels are just held to a higher standard than others. But in any event, you all know what I mean. Malika Andrews is biracial. Cool. You know, people are going to do what they want to do and they're going to marry and date whoever they want to marry. The issue that I take when I see so-called black people, specifically so-called black people that go out of their way to date and marry people within the dominant society. Now, typically, you know, people like that, those are the kind of people that I have issue with because those people, like I said, they're going to raise children. They're going to have this same level of self-hate and contempt for black people within society. And so in the case of Malika Andrews, her mother, I'm going to get into her mother's background a little bit. Like I said, Malika's mother, her name is Karen Andrews, and she is somebody who is a Caucasian lady within a certain community that we cannot say. Just going through Malika's mother's social media, she's somebody that probably identifies with being progressive. And she's somebody that comes across as also being a hardcore feminist. So in any event, you know, Karen Andrews, like I said, is the mother of Malika Andrews. You know, and that's another thing with some of these, you know, white parents raising so-called black children. It seems like they go out of their way to not give them European names. Like, you know, Dylan, Ralph, Karen, Beth, you know, those typical, you know, European names or whatever. It seems like they almost go out of their way to give them black sounding names. I was at the store the other day and I saw a adopted black boy with two white parents. Couple, you could tell they were going out of their way to say their adopted son's name. They kept saying, Malik, come here. Malik, what do you want for dinner? Malik. It's like they had to try to impress me somehow. You know, naming your child a black sounding name, that doesn't impress me in the least. It's what you're teaching your child, in particular what you're teaching your child when it comes to race. You know, you want to impress me? You know, what kind of material is your child reading? What are you telling your adopted son or telling your adopted daughter about his or her skin color? And that's going to bring me back to Malika's mother, Karen. She wrote a children's book entitled Coffee with Cream. Now, this is a book that she dedicated to Malika, and she said it was based on a conversation that she had early on in Malika's childhood about race. And so I actually had to go out and purchase this book. Now, it's not a very long book, but I'm not going to go through and read the whole book. I just want to break down the mindset and some of these people within the dominant society when it comes to raising mixed children and when it comes to raising black children. I'm going to kind of give you an insight into the mindset and why it's troublesome. So I'm going to go ahead and read a few pages and you can follow along in the video if you'd like. This is my family. My dada is brown like espresso. My mama is the color of cream. My sister, Kendra, Kendra is actually on ESPN with Malika. She just got on, I think, a year ago. So both sisters are actually on ESPN. I'm not going to get into her background, but it's basically sister. They're pretty much alike in their thinking and some of their antics. And so it says, my sister Kendra is brown like me, except she has a little more cream in her than I do. She has got the spoons of sugar too. We all look different. Okay, so cool. I got no issue with that. Next page says, I think my mama is beautiful. Also cool. Got no issue with that. Every son or daughter should think his mother is the most beautiful thing to ever walk the earth. So definitely have no issue with that. That's cool. I'm gonna read the next page. And this is the page that I definitely have an issue with. And you'll see why. So it says, one day when I was 4, I asked Mama, am I going to have cream colored skin like you when I grow up? Basically, she's asking her mother if she's going to be white. And that's probably how she asked her. You got to make up the whole coffee and cream deal to kind of sell and make it cutesy. But she basically probably asked her mother, am I going to be white when I grow up? And she said, no. I don't know why that's funny to me, but it is. So she says, I cried, but I want to match you. Oh, sweetheart, she sighed, we match in so many ways. I'll get some paper and pencil and we can make a list. And so here's the issue that I have with that teachable moment that happened between Malika and her mother. And who knows if it actually went down that way, but we'll go ahead and take it for what it is. And so in that moment, when Malika finds out, that she's not going to be white, she goes to her mother and she asks her, am I going to be cream like you? Or am I going to be white like you, basically? And her mother says no. And Malika cries. The little girl's crying. Malika's crying at 4 years old because she finds out she's not going to be white. And so the appropriate reaction would be to reassure them of their complexion and the value that lies within. That would be the appropriate response. And this is something that even so-called black people have to talk about with their children. Black people have the ability to create, so many shades within one family. You'll get anywhere from Wesley Snipes to Cuba Gooding Jr. within one black household. Naturally within a black household, if that family is even a little bit conscious, they're going to understand the propaganda within Hollywood and all the colorism BS that we have to deal with. And so in order to balance things out, you're going to have to uplift your child, especially when it comes to the colorism. You're going to have to balance that out. Otherwise, you wind up with the same results that, we saw in the doll test.
Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
It's going to lead to all kinds of issues with that child, as it was the case with Malika growing up. Malika is somebody who struggled with a severe eating disorder when she was in high school. It was so bad that she actually had to drop out of high school. She actually dropped out of high school and checked into a rehab facility. And eventually she wound up getting her GED. And so like I said in the book, when Malia was crying to her mother that she wasn't going to be white, instead of reassuring Malika about her complexion and about her value, she basically just changed the subject. And that's pretty much the whole premise of the book. It's like, yeah, you're not white, but at least we both like pizza. And so basically she's saying, don't focus on the fact that you're not white. Just focus on the good stuff. As if saying being black is a negative. Even if you're not directly telling that child that being black is a negative, you're doing so by process of elimination. And so what? When it comes down to it, I really don't even blame Karen. I don't even blame Malika as much as I blame that so-called black father. Any father that's worth a damn is supposed to provide reassurance and self-confidence for his child. That's the very least you can do, because everything outside and even inside your household, including your television, is trying to tear them down. So that's the very least you can do as a father. That's the very least you can do as a father. If you don't do anything else, you better build them up. And like I said, even though her mother may have married a so-called black man, she did not marry a so-called black man. You know, people within that community, when they marry outside their race, that's the furthest thing from a come up. I'll say that. You know, people within that community that marry outside their race, and in particular as it comes to marrying a so-called black person, that's one of the worst things that they can do within their community. That's why you hardly ever see it. And y'all know what community I'm talking about. And when you do see it, it's always a very weird dynamic. You know, let's just be honest for a second. You know, this probably is not a woman that a lot of guys within her community were checking for back in the day. So in her eyes, like I said, she's going to have a level of vitriol towards black men because it's a constant reminder she had to scrape the bottom of the barrel in order to have a family. And that's just how they view it. So if you're a so-called black man or black woman raising a child that's biracial, and even if you're, you know, somebody within the dominant society and you're raising a black child, the most important thing that you need to understand is that you're going to have to uplift this child. And you cannot treat this child like it's a white child, basically. You have to treat this child like it's a black child, because that's what the world is going to see. And like I said, black people have the ability to create all different shades. You can have two people that are dark brown create all different shades within that family. And so every time they step outside, they're viewed as black. Your biracial child that may or may not have the same skin tone as them are also going to be viewed as black. That's just the way it is.
Just know that I'm white. I mean, she might not know that I'm white, but I know that I'm white. I can feel it through my veins. I feel it through my blood. I'll never be like any of those Negroes. They're just like really ghetto.
And so you can't afford to raise your child racially neutral. Like I said, we didn't make the rules. And so I think that's a good spot to end. Definitely hope that it was enlightening and educational to somebody out there. So as usual, peace and chaos.